Ladies and gentlemen, it is my task to present the draft guidelines for designing rural roads. This is part of a very large project commissioned by the Ministry of Infrastructure, which was earlier discussed by Professor Gaca. That was during his yesterday's presentation. The title of the entire project is a little complicated, and there was a very complex consortium that was commissioned to do the project. I want to focus predominantly on the issue of designing rural roads. It is actually defined as non-urban roads. This part was done by some members of the consortium, but among others, Warsaw University of Technology, and the team consists of 13 persons. So I will do my best to present to you only the key points. So the key products of the project from our team. We've analyzed 32 drafts, 32 road designs that were co-financed from EU funds. We also run a survey among design offices. Our goal was to find out what is wrong with the current regulations, what could be improved, and what should be the directions for improvement. Of course, there were a lot of detailed conclusions, but I would like to put it in high-level terms. Many of the regulations are generally considered as outdated or simply wrong. Some of the formulations in the regulations are perceived to be imprecise. On the other hand, some are too detailed, making it impossible to properly design roads, especially in difficult terrain. We have to be aware that the currently binding regulations are not well suited to the ever-changing social, economic, and technical expectations and the social, economic, and technological situation. In many cases, we can see that there was too much effort, too much emphasis on economy and environment, and not enough on traffic efficiency and road safety. Based on these conclusions, we started designing the new regulations. The structure of the new regulations consists of two levels, as Professor Gaca said yesterday. The first level, there's a Minister of Infrastructure's regulations, so these are obligatory, these are mandatory guidelines and regulations. At level 2, there are models and standards that will be recommended by the Minister of Infrastructure. So there are mandatory regulations and recommendations, 2 levels. The part that we're going to talk about is the guidelines for designing non-urban roads. They consist of 4 books. You see their symbolic reference, WRD 22. The 22 series books are all pertaining to rural or non-urban roads. Part 1 is basic requirements, Part 2 is geometric design, Part 3 technical equipment, Book 4 a catalogue of typical cross-sections. It would be difficult to present here the draft in its entirety, so I will just focus on the most important changes compared to the existing regulations, especially where it pertains to road safety. When we look at the basic requirements, one major change was that speed was made to be an essential part of the design. It's a single It's a simple parameter which is going to replace two speed parameters that were used before, which was design speed and relevant speed. So these are going to be replaced with speed for design. There is going to be a new formula for distance visibility to stop. And also we introduced the concept of safety zones. As for the geometry of the road, we're going to standardize the cross sections and the permissible parameters. I'll show you in a moment some examples of how we want to do this. We've also introduced new definition of the roadside. So this is a definition that actually goes beyond rural roads, because it's a new definition for both roads and streets. And third element in geometry, road geometry, is new requirements for curves. There's going to be a new dependency between speed, in sideways inclinations and radius. In terms of technical equipment, we have extended guidelines for such elements as drainage, lighting, parking bays, protective barriers, etc. Let's go to the speed for design. This is going to replace the design speed and relevant speed. So instead of two parameters, we're using one. And the parameter needs to be both meeting the expectations of road users and meeting the maximum permissible speed requirement. This is a set of parameters depending on the road class. Standard is the attempt where we need to achieve maximum speeds, speed for design. The second road in the table is other permissible values. These other permissible values will be used in situations where, for instance, the road has to be quite curvy and winding because of the terrain. When we look the visibility to stop parameter, we based it on some of the existing foreign guidelines and also on some of our own research. Professor Tadeusz Sandecki proposed an approach based on which we developed this formula. It puts together the minimum required visibility to stop. We present it in the function of velocity to design and average longitudinal inclination of the road. What is also important is the height of an obstacle when you check visibility to stop. Well, based on foreign experiences and foreign guidelines, we adopted only two heights of the obstacle. Half a meter for velocity for design below or above or equal 70 kilometers an hour, 25 centimeters for velocity below 70 kilometers per hour. These are the possible effects of using the new formula. Our proposal is marked red on the graph. It results in lower distances for visibility to stop, especially for speeds above 80 kilometers per hour. But we are somewhere in between the CEDR requirements and the American AAS-HTO requirement. Another novelty is the introduction of the safety zone. So an area on the roadside which should be free of obstacles. We have recommendations for the width of the safety zone in the roadside, depending on the speed, the radius of curves, and the traffic intensity, SDR. The use of this concept pertains only to roads with permissible speed above 50 kilometers per hour. Moving on to the design geometry of the road. For each road class, we have a standard cross-section and we have other permissible cross-sections. You can see this in the table. We have cross-sections, other permissible, which is 2+1 or 2-1. And there is one where one lane both ways is permissible. We have a catalog of those cross-sections. Please note that they are come with measurements, and for each of these measurements we have a standard value, that's the first row, and the range of permissible widths in the second row. Of course, there's an emphasis to use standard parameters where possible. The cross-section that we called 2-1, which is a novelty, it's something that is used in Germany, but for us it would be quite new. It's a cross-section in which we have one central lane for motor vehicles and two side lanes, which are quite narrow and are really designed for pedestrians and bicycles. And these side lanes can be used by cars when they pass each other in opposite directions. This would be used on very low traffic intensity roads. They would become permissible. Road curves in plan. This is another way of utilizing the formula. We give the designers a certain leeway. They have a certain freedom to choose from. They can propose non-standard solutions on the condition that the formula or the dependencies in the formula are met. We have a dependency here of the radius to velocity and sideways or latitude inclination. Summing up, for each road, we've defined standard cross-sections and other permissible cross-sections. We have ranges of values for the geometric parameters in the cross-section. In many points, it's possible to go beyond the standard solutions, and we have proposed ranges of deviations. So that gives the designer considerable flexibility. We have some more precision on how we can use additional lanes, how and when. And also we have new cross-sections, which is 2+1 and 2-1. I didn't give you the exact details of that, but the lengths of overtake lanes were given. That's 2+1, and the transition sections between one lane cross-section and the other are prescribed. We added some safety parameters. There's a new formula for visibility distance to stop, and we have the new concept of the safety zone. If we can use it, then we do not have to put in safety barriers. And we have a new definition of roadside. This goes actually beyond our design, because roadside is something that is defined not only for rural areas, but it's also all the roadside definitions pertain also to urban areas. And this is all by way of summary, and thank you very much for attention.